This weekend, this Sunday, is Vocation Awareness Sunday. And I think God has a great sense of humor with the scripture passage that's chosen for today. It's supposed to be talking about priesthood. And then Jesus says, point blank, call nobody on the earth your father. So I don't know if you're not supposed to call me Father Mike after today or not. But that is one of those things that Protestants will look at the Catholic faith and say, well, Jesus said, call nobody on your earth your father. Why would you call your priest father? A lot of other denominations will say pastor or teacher or use different terms. But why do we as Catholics use the word father? And I think when we come to a scripture passage like this, like many of the scripture passages in the gospel, we have to take a step back, put it into context, and realize what in fact Jesus is saying. There are some things as Catholics that we do take at face value what Jesus says. This is my body, this is my blood. Unless you eat my flesh and drink my blood, you have no life in me. We believe that wholeheartedly. But then we can look at the Old Testament, we see a lot of things that are said with the law and the old laws of the Jewish people, our brothers and sisters in our faith. And we realize that we have the new covenant in Christ, and a lot of these rules, I mean, we're, turn around 3 times, stand on 1 foot before you do the purifying ritual act. Of course, we don't do that anymore. But we have to look at this gospel passage also in what he is saying. Call nobody on the earth father. He goes after the terms teacher and master. Jesus is not saying that a little boy and girl can't look at their dad and call him father. Of course, we have father figures here on earth. As far as the term master is concerned, we use the terms Mr. and Mrs. all the time. And if we look at the language where that comes from, that means master. And as far as teacher, we use the term doctor. Doctor is a teacher. So these titles are very important in our culture. Jesus is saying don't use these titles. They're as fathers, they're our spiritual fathers. But the things he warns against is don't hide behind the title and think you're so much better than everybody. You're striving just for this title so you can prove that you're better than everybody else. More of aspiring for power or money or wealth or all these things, that's what we need to avoid. If somebody becomes a priest because, well, I never got respect my entire life, but once I'm ordained, people are going to respect me and call me father. No, that's not why you become a priest. Well, I'm going to become a doctor because I want to be smarter than everybody. And everybody's going to know it by the term they call me. No. You become a doctor because you want to serve and minister to others. We become fathers and mothers on this earth because we're giving of ourselves for our loved one. An attitude of servitude is what we're called in our vocation, what we become. We should never hide behind the title. And that brings me to this Vocation Awareness Week. It gives the priests an opportunity to kind of share a little bit of their own call to the priesthood. And of course, the need for the priesthood. As we all know, there's a shortage of priests. But I never realized that there was such a call to the priesthood growing up. I told many of you before that I grew up in a family. We were Catholic. We were by no means holy rollers or anything. We weren't, like you wouldn't look at us and say we're the most pious family or anything. But there are 2 things my mom always told us she didn't want us to be. One was in the military, and the second one was a priest, because nobody could ever be happy doing that. And that's just how we were raised, and I never thought about it. The first time I ever thought about the priest, I was 22 years old. I went through high school, I went through college, and never crossed my mind. I still went to church and things like that, but it was 22 years old. And I moved out here to New Hampshire from Ohio, and I worked at BAE Systems over on Canal Street in Nashua. I was in the Human Resources Department. And it was in November of 2005, I was a parishioner over at St. Catherine's in Hudson. And it was a gospel and a homily. The gospel was the landowner that gave coins to the servants, gave one servant 5 coins, gave another servant 3, gave another servant 1. The one that had 5 went out to town, got another 5. The one that had 3 went out to town, got another 3. The one that only received the 1 coin or the 1 talent took it and was afraid to lose it, so he buried it in the ground. So that when the landowner came back expecting it back, he could say, I gave it back to you. You gave it to me, I gave it back to you, I didn't lose it. Well, it was that one that got reprimanded and scolded. He did not use his talent for what God gave it to him for. And basically he was going to burn in the fiery pits of hell. It's how the story ended. But the ones that went out and used what the Lord had given them, or the landowner had given them, and went out and got more, they were the ones that were applauded. So the whole homily is, what are you using your gifts and talents for? Are you using them for yourself, for titles, for power, prestige, all of that, or are you using what God gave you to serve Him? Now that can mean something different for everybody in the church. It was not talking about the priesthood even, it was just talking about what we're using our life for. But it felt like the priest was looking right at me, and I didn't even know the priest at the time, saying, you're called to be a priest. And my life stopped then. I almost wanted to tap the person next to me and say, hey, did you feel that too? But I went home that day, and for the first time I Googled priesthood. And I saw all these weird pictures of men in Roman collars and wearing black, and it was bizarre. And I thought, well, maybe this is just going to go away. It never went away. And for weeks I was thinking about it. I was daydreaming at work, wondering what priests did, and all this. And I finally got the courage after a couple months to make an appointment and finally say it. And then once you say it, it kind of becomes real. At least you're thinking about it. And that's when discernment starts. But we live in a culture today where it's hard to even talk about this because there aren't many young people that we see, especially in our area of the country, of people that even think about this way of life. So where do you start? And once you say it, what is the family going to say? I mean, my family is supportive now, but when you first start thinking about it, it's comes out of left field, and it's very controversial. Why would you want to do that? Nobody can be happy. You're not going to have a family. Everybody was just about ready to get married in my family, so they were all a different part in their life, and they looked at me and basically, what is wrong with you? And then you start thinking after a while, what is wrong with me? You know, and there is nothing wrong with me. I'm normal. But there's a cultural thing to all this too, of when a young person might think about it, or their thought might cross their mind, are they met with encouragement and support just to find God's will in all of this? Or is it a dismissive type of attitude? So I discerned for a while, and as we all know, I ended up going to the seminary. And for me, the parish at St. Catherine's, they were really supportive. There you go. You're going to make a great priest, or all sorts of stuff. They threw me a party before I left. And then I went to the seminary, and I lasted 10 days. And these people in this row, you saw me at that time. And I came back to St. Catherine's after leaving the seminary after 10 days. And I got up in front of the parish community. I told them that, I'm taking time off. I need to think about this more. They all gave me a standing ovation. Now, that could mean two things. Maybe they thought you'd be the lousy priest, good thing you left. But anyway. But I knew that they were going to be supportive either way. Whether I chose to go back into the seminary one day, or I chose to do something else to raise a family, I knew that the parish community, I knew that my family was going to be with me 100%. But it's all about discerning where the Lord is calling each and every one of us and creating the culture of prayer for vocations. And if a person is interested in being able to accompany them and walk with them towards figuring out what God's call is, because we all know that once you're doing what God is calling you to do, that's when the most peace and that's when the most joy is going to be in our lives. And we encourage and support one another as we try to find that out in each of our lives. Now, as far as New England is concerned, we're very low with vocations. I think for our diocese, we might have 8 or 9 men in the seminary. At the time I was going, I think we had 10 or 11. You go back to Cleveland or the Midwest, where I'm from, we have 80 to 100 guys in the seminary all studying for the priesthood. There's a culture there that's contagious. And there's young guys everywhere that are studying, that are discerning this, so it's easy to I know so-and-so, I know so-and-so. Where out here, unless you have a young pastor or you have a seminary in your parish, it's hard to know. At St. Catherine's at one time we had 5 men studying for the priesthood just from St. Catherine's in Hudson. I was the first one to go in, and then I was the third one to go in. So anyway, but it was a pleasant experience, that's for sure, but again, it's all discernment. And before I was ordained a priest, seminary for me was about 6 years. And I was just about ready to get ordained a priest, and I had a couple of good friends in the seminary. And about 2 weeks before ordination, I had a few of my friends leave. God was calling them other places, and then they haven't gone back. And so I felt a little bit well, I'm going forward with this, but you know what? God calls people in different directions, and I definitely feel blessed, and I feel called that this was the right decision for me for the Lord in my life. I would have never thought about it when I was younger. So, the Lord directs us all in different ways. So as a community this week, I just ask that we pray for vocations. We create a culture here, especially in our parish and in our diocese, of men just to be open to the possibility and not turn it down right away at face value and be able to openly talk about it. I can tell you after 3.5 years, I've only been a priest for 3.5 years, but it's been awesome. I mean, you can't see what it's going to be like on the other side until you're there. But there is no Eucharist. There is no consecration of the Eucharist without the priesthood. And knowing what the Eucharist brings to my entire life, to my life, and the life of a parish community is awesome. Living amongst people and serving them with the heart of Christ and the mission of the gospel is awesome. That forgiveness of sins and the sacrament of reconciliation, being that conduit, being that who God uses to forgive sins here on earth is awesome. Something I could never have asked for as a young person or even thought of. But the gift that God has given me in priesthood is beyond my wildest dreams. I'm so proud to be here and to be your pastor. So we pray together as a community for priests, for all those that are in the seminary. And also that the Lord touches young men or men to discern this call in their life. But most of all, that we're all strengthened in the vocation that he has called us to. Whether he has called us to be a spiritual father, a human father, a mother, a teacher, a doctor, a minister of God in so many various ways. Praise be to God.